He's gonna take you back to the past. I'm gonna take him to the psychiatric ward. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where our favorite F word is funambulism, which means tightrope walking. Duh. I'm also a fan of the words slangwanger, widdershins, and collywobbles, but now we're just indulging ourselves and turning into morosofts, so I'll stop my digressing. Today, we're talking about the angry video game nerd, the internet's most famous gamer. Angriest gamer? Before him. Now you're just messing with me. Nope, that's the happy video game nerd. Ah, there it is. The original angry gamer. Long before the days of the bro-fisted, the grumps, and the theorists, there was the nerd. And Shitpickle, but everyone tries to forget about him. In fact, the nerd was the first gaming celebrity I'd ever heard about that wasn't Miyamoto or some big game developer, who was just, quite simply, a gamer. He was the one who introduced me, and I think many of us, to the world of online video as a medium for game discussion and comedy. Quite frankly, he was a pioneer of the field, and without him, the gaming landscape across the web would look incredibly different, especially here on YouTube. But for as much as we laugh at the AVGN, and mind you, we're talking about the AVGN character and not James Rolfe the creator, when you come right down to it, there's a disturbing trend across his content, with the nerd's archive of videos documenting a string of alarming symptoms pointing towards severe mental and physical illnesses. Seriously, I'm worried about this guy. So for his sake, and for the sake of all of us who love trash-talking glitchy movie tie-ins and oversized AC adapters, what's wrong with the angry video game nerd? Let's diagnose. First, his namesake, the anger. Well, yes, anger is a natural emotion in everyone, and yes, broken, poorly programmed, and excessively difficult games can make anyone rage. His reactions are, well, a bit more extreme, rivaled only by this Russian kid. Yikes. And while everyone might shout out the occasional darn or shucks while working their way through a particularly challenging level, his feelings are a bit more colorful.
Now you're playing with f***ing shit. You're better off f***ing shit than f***ing with this f***ed up this shit. You don't know shit about how f***ing shitty this f***ing shit is.
What? You can't expect me to actually air that stuff, can you? I mean, come on now. This is a family-friendly show after all. Hey, that was from a different, more confused time, okay? Past attempts at clickbaiting aside, though, having these sorts of intense reactions in situations where, let's face it, he's still on level 1 of a pretty mediocre video game, seems to suggest that the nerd suffers from a condition called intermittent explosive disorder, or IED, a completely real mental illness that's characterized by extreme expressions of anger, often to the point of uncontrollable rage, that are disproportionate to the situation at hand. Muttering a mild curse because you missed a jump? Normal. Beating Bugs Bunny to the brink of death, then defecating on the victim? Abnormal. Gnashing one's teeth and pulling their hair after losing a critical in-game moment? Normal. Using a flaming crossbow to destroy a decently functional gaming system? Abnormal. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, better known as the DSM-5, is the Bible of abnormal psychology. According to this document, to be properly diagnosed with a disorder, you need to meet 3 criteria. The first is that the anger needs to result in damage to either a person or property. Yeah. The second is that the explosive behavior needs to be disproportionate to the inciting action, i.e. big reactions to small events. And while yes, I agree that the Jaguar was a lackluster system, the normal response would not be to pull down one's pants and relieve oneself upon it. So definitely a big checkmark there, but it's the third that gives us a challenge. You see, this one requires that the behavior cannot be accounted for by another condition, and in this case, I think there might be an even better explanation for his erratic behavior. This Russian kid, on the other hand, total case of IED. Because when you come right down to it, the nerd is a lot more than simply an explosive rage addict. Over and over, we see evidence that he experiences intense symptoms of mental illness. What I'm talking about are his highly vivid hallucinations. Ninjas, comic book characters, floating pickles of excrement, even a cyborg religious figure he's named Super Mecha Death Christ. The nerd reacts to these creations with such vehemence that it seems to suggest that he may be suffering from paranoid schizophrenia, a mental illness defined by extreme delusions and hallucinations. It's a pretty extreme claim, so in order to fully diagnose him, we need to look a bit closer. A common delusion among paranoid schizophrenics is that you've been singled out for harm, and we see this time and time again. The nerd's insistence that he was tied up and punished by the Joker, or that he was actively pursued by fictional nightmare creatures like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. Paranoid schizophrenics may also have delusions of grandeur, the belief that they can fly, that they're famous, for example. In the nerd's case, he repeatedly assumes the role of an accessory-clad superhero who must defeat both the devil and rampaging robots, calling to his side the help of Jesus Christ himself. And finally, the delusions can result in aggression or violence if you believe you must act in self-defense against those who want to harm you. See also Bugs Bunny. So the nerd is clearly delusional, but there's more. Paranoid schizophrenia also comes in a bundle pack with auditory hallucinations. The person suffering from the illness hears unpleasant voices that are cruel, making ongoing criticisms of what they're thinking or doing. Throughout the nerd's videos, no example is better than the glitch gremlin, a creature who harasses the nerd mercilessly throughout his play session. Other symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia include extreme anger and bursts of intense violence, and we already know that the nerd has those. In short, taking years worth of nerd videos into consideration, the diagnosis is clear. What we've been laughing at hasn't been a stereotyped caricature of the gaming nerd persona. No. What we've been laughing at for millions upon millions of hours is a mentally disturbed gamer clearly in need of psychiatric consultation. Dear theorists watching this video, indulge me a moment while I reach out directly to this man. This individual in an attempt to correct the years of neglect that we've shown him. Nerd, if you're watching this, and I hope to super mecha death Christ that you are, there's more. Now, I had hoped to tell you this privately, and I hate to bring this up in a public forum, but your Twitter unfortunately remained silent to my requests, so this is the only option I have left. After observing the tapes, something else rather concerning came to my attention. I guess there's no beating around the bush. I'm worried about your bowel movements. Across all your tapes, I noticed a disturbing trend in your, pardon the phrase, anal excretions. Roll the tape. You see here, as you evacuate onto Bugs Bunny's face, your fecal matter is incredibly loose, unable to form an actual stool. The excrement here is practically the consistency of melted chocolate mixed with water. In short, the rapidity of the evacuation, the volume pouring out of your anus, and the way your buttocks just seems to open this veritable floodgate is cause for concern. But that's not all. If you look here, as you defecate onto this Jaguar CD, it appears as though you're actually experiencing the opposite problem. Your feces is thick and sticky. The look on your face seems to indicate that this is painful and difficult to pass, almost as though you're constipated. And examining the sample closer, or at least as close as the medium of online video will allow me to investigate, shows poor digestion of the contents of your stomach. Personally, these symptoms make me worried that you might be suffering from an inflammatory bowel disease, specifically Crohn's disease. But without getting to examine the buttock region in person, I can't 100% make that distinction. Just be careful, okay? The last thing you want is to develop an anal blockage, or worse, a fistulae, which are these tunnels connecting anal abscesses to infected block glands. It's sticky. Anyway, just watch your ass. Literally. In the end, both paranoid schizophrenia and irritable bowel syndrome are treatable, but you should get that treatment immediately, nerd. Or not. I mean, we've all been laughing at your physical and mental illnesses for the past 8 years, and it seems to have made you quite successful, so I guess you could keep going with it. But at the very least, you now know what's going on, if you didn't already. So take that information and use it as you see fit. And out here in the Weboverse, just rest assured that one theorist is paying attention to you. But hey, it's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the Super Amazing End Card Tournament, where last week Mega Man 2 took the cake, followed closely by Mega Man 3. Thanks for not surprising me, guys. And Mega Man 8, come on, really? Really? Whatever. In honor of the nerd, today's question: what is the worst game ever? Ranging from Link's CDI adventures in E.T. for the Atari to Superman 64 and Big Rig Racing? There's so many to choose from, I can't leave it to click. So leave a comment below to cast your vote for the worst game ever, and next episode we'll find out which one you thought was the #1 steaming turd. Nerd, 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 nerd's the word. Nerd, 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 nerd's the word. Nerd, 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 nerd's the word.